The man went to the boss to ask for his salary, but the boss did not want to pay the workers. The other workers were very angry when they saw this, but the man was very calm. He rushed into the company and took the hat. Then the man hit the boss on the head, causing him to fall to the ground. Then the man pulled out a knife and forced the boss to pay the salary. This somewhat violent man's name was Minte. He used to be a famous gangster, but had quit his job. After Minte got the money, the first thing he did was call his younger brother. However, no one answered the phone, so he had to send the money to his sister-in-law, Munyang. Then he continued on his way to find his younger brother. In another development, the police are investigating a serious murder case. It was a case related to the son of the group's chairman who was stabbed into a coma. And the special thing is that all the clues point to Minte's younger brother, Seok-tae. He is a member of the notorious Changmo organization. Two policemen immediately went to Seok-tae's house to investigate and track his whereabouts. During that process, they knew that Seok-tae was living with a woman named Munyang, and his brother used to be a famous gangster of the Changmo organization. However, since Minte was released from prison, he has cut off his relationship with the gangster world. The reason he went to prison is known to be to take the blame for his younger brother. It can be said that Minte could risk his life for his younger brother. During that move, the police did not know that the suspect brother had just passed by. Then they entered Seok-tae's house, but it was too late. In the room, the police only collected needles and tools related to drug use. The suspects were missing. Not getting any information, the two policemen asked the homeowner, but she didn't know if the two were husband and wife. The homeowner only knew that the man was a frequent abuser. Hearing that, the policeman asked if anyone else had come to look for Seok-tae besides them. The homeowner immediately replied that his brother had also come here to look for his younger brother. Hearing that, the policeman blamed the homeowner for not telling them about this matter in advance. At the same time, Minte was going to the Changmo organization's territory to meet the boss. As soon as he saw Changmo, he asked about his brother, who he hadn't seen for a long time, but Minte only gave a vague answer and then asked question directly. Minte asked the boss if he knew where Seok-tae was, but the boss just smiled and said that Seok-tae's disappearance was a common occurrence. He thought that Minte's younger brother must have caused trouble and then ran away. Hearing that, Minte tried to calm down and asked the boss if he had caused any conflict with the Triad gang. Changmo heard that and had a puzzled expression. He didn't understand why Minte had left the organization and was still asking for inside information. Changmo also advised Minte to restrain himself because he was no longer a member of the gang. But Minte didn't care. He just wanted to find his brother's whereabouts at all costs. The conversation ended in a cold and heavy atmosphere. As soon as he stepped out of the door, Minte was called back from behind by another member. This person advised him not to try to solve Seok-tae's problem anymore, because the organization had already solved his problem. If Minte continued to get involved, things would become more complicated. But Minte only replied that he knew and then left. This person could only feel helpless when he saw that. Obviously, he knew that Minte wouldn't stop. That night, Minte accidentally met Young-seb, a subordinate he knew from before. Young-seb revealed that Seok-tae had appeared at Munyang's karaoke bar, but then it was unclear what happened. Upon hearing that, Minte asked more about Kang-ho, who was a brother from the same gangster world as him. But Young-seb just told Minte not to look for Kang-ho anymore, because he would go crazy when he saw him again. Minte didn't care about that. He just told Young-seb to tell Kang-ho that he would come back tomorrow. The next morning, a body was discovered by a dog on the riverbank. Minte also quickly knew the information and went to confirm the body. When he opened the blanket, the body in front of him was actually Seok-tae. Looking at his dead younger brother in front of him, Minte couldn't help but be shocked and heartbroken. He suddenly remembered the memories of when he brought his younger brother into the underworld. At that time, Seok-tae was still a young man who had not been tainted. Back in the present, Minte was questioned by the police, during which the police hoped he could cooperate. But Minte just nodded in agreement and then asked to leave. To the surprise of the police, Minte went to find his old comrades, hoping to take revenge together. But the subordinates Minte was looking for now followed Changmo's orders. When Minte knew he couldn't rely on this person, he said goodbye and left. Minte knew for sure that Seok-tae's death was related to the gang, so he went to find Kang-ho. However, before he could enter, he was stopped by a group of subordinates in the middle of the road. In that situation, Minte's anger immediately exploded violently. Without saying a word, he pulled out the iron pipe he was carrying and rushed in to attack. In the blink of an eye, Minte kicked Young-seb down, then attacked the others one by one. He beat them one by one, each one of them being beaten black and blue by by Minte. But the number of soldiers grew, and Minte was not afraid and continued to rush into them. With only an iron bar in his hand, he took down each one without hesitation. After a while of fierce fighting, his younger brother, Byungju, came to pick Minte up and leave. At the same time, the police were investigating the scene at Munyang's karaoke. They suspected that this was the scene where Seoktae was murdered because the police found traces of blood left behind when the body was dragged. Here, the police chief wondered why the drug team was involved in the case. At this time, the remaining colleague said that she was the one investigating Munyang. After investigating, the police discovered that Munyang was involved with a literary author because Munyang's last call was to this author Ryung. At this time, Ryung wondered what information the police wanted. At this time, the police said that the person who lived with Munyang was dead, and they also had no trace of Munyang. So the investigation team wanted to ask the author if he had seen her recently, but Ryung said that he had not seen her for more than a year. When Ryung was asked about his relationship with Munyang, the author said that he only knew her from a few meetings in culture class. Hearing that, the police wanted to ask why they met. Ryung immediately shyly replied that he had to tell them all about his private matters. Hearing that, the police did not ask any more questions. He just gave the author the contact number and left. In another development, Kang Ho came to find Minte to deal with it because he had just injured Kang Ho's subordinate. Seeing Minte's calm expression, Kang Ho pulled out a gun and threatened him. Seeing the gun, he could not help but be surprised. At the same time, Minte informed Kang Ho about Seoktae's murder. At this time, Kang Ho understood the problem. Kang Ho said that Minte might have found the wrong person. He should have gone to find Munyang. On this side, author Ryung, when returning to the apartment, immediately searched for some documents. While searching for data, he suddenly received an untitled email. Inside the email was a recording containing Munyang's confessions. The recording only said that she wanted Seoktae to die, and Munyang even hoped that someone would kill him. When he listened to the recording again, Ryung couldn't help but feel scared. Then he quickly called someone to ask them to investigate the IP of the strange email. At the same time, Minte was still determined to investigate the real cause of his brother's death. With the help of Byung-gyu, he followed the trail to a restaurant near where Munyang worked. There, Minte heard that the police were also suspecting her of being involved in the case. At first, he couldn't believe that Munyang could be involved in the murder. At that moment, Ryung also suddenly entered the restaurant to ask about Munyang. The conversation between him and the restaurant owner made Minte immediately pay attention. After leaving the restaurant, Ryung was called back by the owner and said something very mysterious. Because he was standing too far away, Minte couldn't hear clearly, so he told his subordinates to immediately follow him. Unexpectedly, Ryung went straight to Seoktae's old apartment. What's more suspicious is that he even has the key to open the door and enter the house himself. Minte secretly follows behind. He quietly enters while Ryung is searching. When he sees a stranger appear in the house, he panics and tries to leave immediately. But Minte blocks his way and loudly questions about their true relationship. At that moment, police officer Park suddenly appears and takes both of them to the police station. In the interrogation room, Ryung says that he was worried, so he came to check the house. However, police officer Park is not misled by that flawed statement. With the help of his female colleague Min, he discovers an important secret. Ryung is the author of the novel called Night Walk. What's special is that the content of the novel overlaps many details with Seoktae's case. The image of the female lead in the story has too many similarities with Munyang in real life. The coincidence makes the police start to think deeply about the connection between the two. However, Ryung still insisted that all the content in the book was fiction. He thought that being suspected just because of the novel made him feel very wronged. Hearing that, Police Park was helpless and let Kang Ho temporarily leave the police station. However, as soon as he left the door, he was immediately stopped by Minte in the middle of the road. He believed that Kang Ho knew the truth or was involved in Seoktae's death, but he seemed annoyed. Kang Ho thought that Minte was too paranoid and avoided all questions. The incident was like a persistent thorn that made Minte's heart unable to rest. He returned to Seoktae's house and found that work on the table, but after reading a few pages, Minte lost patience because everything was too vague. In the end, he decided to go straight to the academy where Ryung used to teach. Here, Minte met two people who used to be in the same class as Munyang. Both revealed that Kang Ho had talked about that work as if he had experienced the incident. The female lead in the story is a very miserable person. When the man she lived with with was a cruel drug addict. When she left home, her brother came to find her, even though he knew that the girl was often abused by her younger brother. But that brother didn't care much. He just threw some money to the victim as compensation. After hearing that story, Minte thought a lot. He and Byungju went to Cheongryongri. At the same time, Ryung also followed the IP address of the email to go there. Suddenly, there was a call from the book publisher. She would send him a link to the article so he could see it more clearly. When he heard that, he quickly stopped the car to read the article. The title of the article highlighted the content of the case in the novel Night Walk that had come true. After reading it, Ryung was very worried. He angrily threw away the iPad to vent his anger. It seemed that Ryung was involved in this case. He finally reached the address where the email that released the recording was sent. That person was Munyang's younger brother. At this time, Munyang's younger brother blamed Ryung for giving her hope of death. It was he who indirectly made Munyang want to kill Seok-tae. The author was very confused when he heard that. He intended to ask Munyang's younger brother where he got the recording file. But Ryung suddenly realized something and asked again about Munyang's whereabouts. But he refused to answer the author's question and left. On this side, Byungju was also watching him go home. As soon as Munyang's younger brother sat down to rest, he discovered something unusual in the house. As expected, Minte came out from somewhere with a cold expression. Then he poured some wine and invited Munyang's younger brother to drink with him. At this moment, Minte was very remorseful. He knew that his younger brother had made Munyang suffer a lot, but he thought Seok-tae did not deserve to be killed. Munyang's younger brother objected when he heard that, thinking that people like Seok-tae deserved to die. Minte couldn't stand those words and punched him. Then Minte showed Seok-tae's child's picture and asked, but Munyang's younger brother only responded with a hateful look. Seeing that, Minte didn't want to ask anymore and left. The next day, he went to Munyang's best friend for many years. At this time, Minte didn't hesitate to use tricks to threaten Munyang's friend's mother. Faced with such a terrifying threat, the friend finally revealed some information. Immediately after that, Minte immediately ran to a small restaurant that he suspected. When Minte showed the girl's picture to ask, the owner's expression changed. She pretended not to know her and avoided him. Seeing that, Minte observed the surroundings and then went to look for Munyang everywhere. Despite his best efforts, he couldn't find her. But when he just went out, he discovered a nearby table empty, even though the food had just been served. Immediately after that, Minte realized that the person who left was Munyang. He hurriedly went out to chase her. But this place was very crowded, and there were many alleys and furniture blocking it. So after a while of chasing, Minte lost track of Munyang, but he did not give up. Minte carried the gas tank back to the restaurant. He closed the door and locked all the exits, opened the valve of the tank and held the lighter in his hand. Looking at Minte's fierce expression and crazy actions, the owner was scared and trembling, stammering. She said that Munyang had left the city. She seemed to be going to see an older sister. After that, Minte and Byungju helplessly left. At the same time, Munyang and her daughter had gone quite a distance. Meanwhile, the police were still constantly checking the scene to find more clues. She listened to Munyang's recordings over and over again, in which she said that when Seok-tae was gone, she would return to her hometown with her daughter. At this time, Ryung was also listening to the content and thinking deeply. In another development, the information was too vague, making it almost impossible for Minte to do anything more. He continued to track down old classmates who had attended classes with Munyang. Based on the content of the novel, a friend guessed that Munyang might have returned to where she used to live. At that moment, Minte seemed to wake up and immediately called Byungju to take him away. Minte headed straight for Hanam district. At the same time, the police investigation also began to make clear progress. After much consideration, policemen suggested closely monitoring Minte and Ryung's movements. Policemen believed that if she followed these two people, she would be able to track Munyang's movements. And so, 3 different factions, with 3 targets, set off at the same time. The first person to arrive at Munyang's sister's tea shop was Minte. As soon as he entered, he didn't care about the prying eyes of the people around him. Minte immediately searched everywhere in the shop to check every corner. After confirming that Munyang hadn't appeared, he went to ask the shop owner, but the result was no different from the previous times. She pretended not to know anything. Seeing Minte's fierce demeanor, a customer in the shop stood up to defend the owner. At first, he intended to ignore it, but the other party kept pushing forward, making Minte lose his patience. In the end, he took action to teach the busybody a lesson he would never forget. After the fight, Minte immediately turned to call the shop owner to make tea. As soon as he finished speaking, Ryung also followed the traces and appeared at this place. He also saw 2 beaten men helping each other leave the shop. When he saw Ryung enter, the corner of his lips slightly raised. Minte smiled meaningfully. He turned to the the shop owner and calmly said that he could exchange 2 cans of soda. Then she immediately secretly took out her phone and texted Munyang about Minte's appearance. When Ryung sat down at the table, Minte asked why he came here. Ryung remained calm as usual. He did not rush to answer the question. Minte continued to press why the work described the murder victim correctly. Did Ryung and Munyang collude to kill Seoktae? Unexpectedly, Ryung responded coldly. Someone like Minte knew very well why his younger brother was killed. He heard that and was about to ask more when a girl walked in and accidentally mentioned Munyang. As soon as he heard that, Minte approached the landlady and asked where Munyang was. The landlady was extremely scared and trembling. She blurted out a lie that Munyang was at her house. Minte believed it was true, so he immediately called Byungju to go to her house to check. When they left, Ryung saw the landlady's phone left on the counter. Without hesitation, he used that phone to call Munyang directly to verify. As for Minte, following the landlady's instructions, they went to a quiet small house in the suburbs. However, when she entered, Munyang was nowhere to be seen. At the tea shop, Ryung hurriedly asked the employee from earlier about the owner's home address. Being pressured by him, the girl finally revealed it on the upper floor of the shop. After hearing that, Ryung immediately rushed up the stairs. He opened every door to search. Meanwhile, after Minte searched the house but found nothing, Byungju immediately called to report to Changmo. When he heard that Minte seemed to have found Munyang's traces, Changmo immediately became alert and secretly assigned his subordinates a mission. At this time, Minte still refused to give up. He continued to search in the strange house. Suddenly, a man came out to greet the owner, making him immediately realize something. It turned out that the place they went to was not the owner's house at all, but the police station. Knowing that he had been tricked, Minte angrily picked up an iron shovel and hit policeman on the head. At the same time, at the tea shop, Ryung discovered that the tea was still hot and a new message had arrived. After reading the message, he hurriedly left the shop. Ryung headed straight to the nearest bus stop. Knowing that he had been tricked, Minte also immediately got in the car and returned to the tea shop in anger. On the way back, Minte suddenly discovered that Ryung was going in the opposite direction. He immediately told his subordinate Byungju to turn the car around and chase Ryung. When they were almost there, a small truck suddenly blocked the road. From the back of the truck, a group of strong men holding sticks rushed forward with a ferocious aura. It turned out that they were the group of people who had been beaten up by Minte at tea shop, and now they had come back to take revenge on him. Seeing the group rushing forward as if they were rushing towards death, Minte said nothing and pulled out the iron pipe. In just a few blows, he gave the group a lesson they would never forget again. In another corner of the bus station, Munyang was hugging her daughter and sleeping soundly. At this moment, she remembered Seoktae's death. That day after the incident, Seoktae went to see Changmo, who was still in a state of unconsciousness due to drugs. The incident of stabbing the son of the chairman of a large corporation made the boss want to go crazy. When he asked why Seoktae did that, he just muttered that it was because the other party wanted to sleep with his Munyang. While Changmo was going crazy, a phone call came in, the content of which was unclear. But then the boss walked out to the counter, holding a hairpin in his hand. He was about to say something to Munyang but stopped. She also knew that Seoktae's fate was about to come to an end. Munyang was scared, but it seemed like she also wanted it to happen, so she didn't stop it and just watched. Then, the boss Changmo used the hairpin to stab Seoktae many times. After finishing off the subject, the boss ordered Munyang to run away from the police and Minte. If they discovered both she and her daughter would die. Back to the present, Ryung also arrived at the bus station. Not long after, Minte also appeared and left. Meanwhile, Byungju was in the car looking at him with mixed emotions. At the same time, 2 policemen who were monitoring Minte's signal quickly entered. All 3 sides were frantically searching for a suspect. Not long after, Ryung was the first to find Munyang and her daughter. But before he could say anything, Minte discovered them. What no one expected was that Byungju suddenly rushed forward and stabbed Munyang. In just a flash, Byungju quickly ran away, surprising Minte. He saw that he could not catch up with his subordinates, so he quickly drove the taxi next to him. During that dramatic chase, Minte's car followed closely. Byungju also used all his strength to swerve to avoid Minte. When reaching a 3-way intersection, Byungju quickly turned the wheel, causing him to not have time to react, causing a collision with another car. However, Minte still did not stop chasing. After a long journey, weaving through the streets, Byungju was driving while wanting to go crazy because Minte wouldn't let him go. In order to block his subordinates, Minte recklessly crashed his car directly into Byungju. Despite pain, Minte still rushed forward. He dragged him out of the car and forced him to tell the truth. But Byungju only bowed his head to apologize. He refused to say a word. Based on his attitude and behavior tonight, Minte was sure her, Byungju was related to Changmo. At this moment, all he had left in his mind was pain and disappointment. On this side, the police were also issuing a wanted notice for Minte. Munyang was also taken to the emergency room after being stabbed. Not long after, Minte also went to the hospital where Munyang was being treated. Here he saw Munyang's sister and child waiting. Seeing that scene, Minte was very confused. Then he quickly left. The next morning, Minte appeared alone at the gathering point of the Changmo's gang. The deputy gang leader felt extremely uneasy as soon as he saw him. He silently signaled his subordinates to inform them and quickly walked towards Minte. He wanted to take advantage of their old friendship to persuade him, but Minte didn't care. Minte immediately picked up the wine bottle on the table and hit the opponent's head without hesitation. Then, Minte pulled out the steel rod and fought to the death with his subordinates. At this moment, Minte seemed to have transformed into a warrior, swinging the iron rod to hit each person one by one. He swung his stick and then kicked the opponent. Although there were many enemies, they couldn't stop Minte's steps. During the fight, he couldn't avoid being stabbed, but at this time, Minte no longer felt pain. The deputy gang leader stood up to fight back, but was hit hard by Minte with a chair, followed by a kick that sent him flying into the cold sea. Despite his injuries, he still fought desperately, without retreating a single step. Finally, Minte arrived in front of Changmo. Minte was still trying to control his anger. He asked where his younger brother's lower body was, but Changmo seemed indifferent and thought that Minte only needed to see Soktae's face. Hearing that, he immediately swung his stick and decisively dealt with the boss. Immediately after that, he continued to look for the person who asked the boss to deal with Soktae. It seemed that this revenge battle had no end. The movie ended here. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, and see you again.